I don't know if you.
Hi, my name is Angie Tucker. I'm a board member and secretary of Revelation Gardens. Revelation Gardens is a Benton County nonprofit working to reduce the number of pets in need in our community. We have started a weekly podcast called Our Weekly Pause on Sundays at 2 to talk about things related to pets. Today's topic is kids and pets. Before we jump in, I'd like to remind you of our founding scripture, Revelation 21:4. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. So today our guests are very special to me. They are my niece and my nephew, Daniel Watson and Mary Katherine Watson. They live in Durham, North Carolina, and I just got to visit them for 10 days, and so I asked them if they'd like to do a podcast with me, and so they very graciously agreed, and their mom very graciously agreed, and their dad, who is my brother, doesn't know what's going on, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so one of the things I wanted to talk to the kids about is 7 things kids can learn from pets. And so the first thing is responsibility. So if you have children and you're wanting to teach them responsibility and they're asking for a pet, it absolutely teaches responsibility. I want Daniel and Mary Katherine to tell us about some of the pets they've had to take care of.
Well, we took care of our neighbors' goats when they go on vacation. And sometimes it's hard to get them to eat from the right bowl, so we usually bring out the bowls before. There are 2 baby goats and 1 older goat, and they fight sometimes over it. So we can put some of them back in the pen and keep some of them out, and they do that.
Yeah, and I was there, and they had to chase. Like, we had 2 of the little baby goats go in pretty easy, but the older goat is harder to get in. And so one thing that's really cool to me is you 2 guys did your own problem solving. So tell me, how'd you get the mama goat in when you couldn't get the mama goat in? Or the white goat, I don't know if she's the mama.
So we took a little container of food and we just showed it to her. And then we walked into the pen, and she came after the food, and then we stuck it on a bucket. And they started eating the food, and we came out and put up the container, and then they were in.
Yeah, and they let the babies back out because they're easier to get back in because the big white one was so hard. But I didn't tell them how to do it. You know, I was there watching, and I was like, I don't know what to do. My 2 kiddos right there, they both came up with their own way of taking care of that. Now, they also had to take care of the cat. What do you have to do for the cat?
The cat can be a little bit scared of the goats, so we have to make sure we feed the cat before we let the goats out when we feed them.
Okay, that's good. I want to talk to you a little bit about how pets can help your child's self-esteem. So as a child, sometimes we feel like we don't fit in or we don't have any friends or things like that, where I think a pet is really good about accepting us no matter what we are. And so think about the pets that you've encountered. Have they always been like really the fact that they are like, I like you? Do you know how does that help you feel better about yourself?
Yes. Our neighbor's dog. We don't have any pets, but our neighbors have 2 dogs, and anyone who comes over, they will just they'll run around in circles and they'll play with them and they'll let them scratch them, and they don't really care what the person looks like or anything, and that they just like whoever they see.
Yeah, and so I think that's really cool because sometimes I think a pet helps a child not feel so alone, because they always have this thing that accepts them and loves them no matter what. I want to talk about the other thing that having a pet helps a child with is they learn compassion. So, Daniel, I want you to tell about volunteering with animal rescue.
So Another one of our neighbors has a dog shelter that they run from their house, and I asked to help with it, and they had been helping this dog. She was they had her for like 6 or 9 months, and she had almost drowned in Hurricane Florence, and so she was scared of everyone. And so I went there and I helped her, and and in like the month that I was there, she ended up being adopted, and she made a lot of progress because at first she wouldn't come out of the house if I was there, and by the end she would walk with me, and after the beginning where she would be scared, she'd realize, oh, I know this person, and then she would just be fine.
That's good. Do you have anything to add to that, Mary Catherine? Have you ever felt sorry for a animal and helped it in some way? Have y'all ever had to find like help with the birds outside or something to help them be okay?
One time, a baby Carolina wren fell out of the nest on our little plant stand, and it has holes in it, so it fell through, and Dada had to safely get it back up in the nest.
Okay. And so animals is a good way to teach, living things are, we need to help when living things need help. And so that can translate into people too. So I love that my kiddos are learning to be compassionate to animals. Here's something else that's kind of cool to me that children can learn from animals. So I teach junior high, and junior high is a crazy time, and these two are about junior high age, so these two people kind of know that are kind of in a crazy time. And one of the things that you can learn from animals is behavioral awareness, and what that means is you can watch a dog or a cat and you can learn their cues. You can know when not to pet them. You can know when they feel bad, even though they can't say it. You can know when they want to be petted. You can understand maybe about space, because maybe the dog's getting in your space all the time. And so you can understand, okay, sometimes I get in other people's space and I need to back off, and I can see that. Do y'all have anything you want to say about behavioral? Is there anything a dog does that you can tell what it's feeling?
Our neighbor's dog hides under the ottoman when he's done with us, and he doesn't do it a lot, but when he does do it, he's definitely done with us.
Isn't that funny? That's cool. So yeah, so we learn to pick up cues. I was talking with some friends about people who don't know when to leave your house when they're visiting and they overstay their welcome. So it kind of helps you learn those cues. Okay, these people are done with me. I need to leave. And so just like the dog is doing there. What's another thing that a dog or a cat does that you can tell what they're feeling?
The same dog, when he wants to play with us, he will pick up his bone and he will hide under the bed, and so we can come and get him, and then he just runs around the house.
Yeah.
And we have to chase him around.
Yeah. So learning cues like that. What about when a dog wags its tail? What does that mean?
Means he's happy. He
Yeah.
likes what's happening.
Yeah. What about it like a cat that arches its back and hisses? What does that mean?
Go away.
Go away. That's right. Yeah, go away. So see, there's lots of things that animals use their body for. We humans sometimes forget about body language because we use our voice so much more, but we have body language too that we can learn to read. The next one's kind of sad. So having a pet helps kids learn to cope with loss. Now, sometimes kids have to learn to cope with real loss. A grandparent dies, or a parent dies, or a friend dies, and they have to learn to cope. But if they've had the experience where they've had a pet, and pets die, young people know, mainly young people, and so a lot of times they don't know the people who die as much as us older people do. And so having a pet who dies, they kind of learn, okay, this is what it feels like when something you love goes on. And so my two kiddos, you had a pet a long time ago, but you were both too young. Daniel, do you remember when Calvin died?
When Calvin died, I don't really remember what happened. I
Hmm.
think I may have been asleep, but all I remember was that they just took him to the vet one day, and because he couldn't walk and he couldn't, he went to the bathroom all over the house, and he just and he was like hurting and he couldn't function.
Right.
And I was sad for a while, but I was too young to really realize
Understand.
what had happened.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so they hadn't experienced that completely, but their neighbors have lost their pets, and they've kind of helped them work through that, I think, too, hadn't you?
Yeah.
Our neighbor's granddaughter, she lost a pet while they were staying with her
Hmm.
in Georgia, I think. And so, but the mom wouldn't go, well, the pet bit someone, and the mom wouldn't go and surrender it. So the grandparents had to, our neighbors had to go and surrender it for them. And they were very sad about it, and they had to come home early, and they
Yeah,
didn't enjoy their stay. And the granddaughter was super sad.
right, right. And so I think you've talked to your neighbors about that, haven't you?
Also, the people with the goats, they had two dogs, but both of them died, and we didn't really get to be around them much during that time, but we could tell that they were sad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something we have to do. I remember when I was younger, I had a bird die, and my mom was really good friends with our preacher, Marshall Gupton, and he was over there when the bird died, or he came over or something, and Marshall said to Mom, she has to deal with this. She has to deal with this loss. And he said, let's have a funeral. So Brother Gupton preached at my bird's funeral. So he thought that was a way to help me kind of accept that as a young person losing my pet. So another thing we learned from owning pets is respect. I think that's very important right now. We're learning to be able to say, I don't like what you're doing. I want you to stop as human beings. Pets are really good at telling us that. Pets are really good at saying, stop it, back off. This is my space. I don't want to be touched right now. Give me a break, and so we learn to respect our pets, and maybe by learning to respect our pets, we can see that in humans too. We learn to respect their space. Have you ever had a dog or a cat give you signals that they don't need to be touched or held right now?
Yeah.
Our neighbor's cat Sunshine, she will go under the shed or out of the yard and will kind of look at us like this and kind of
Mm-hmm.
hiss at us when she's done.
Yeah.
And so we learned that we can't touch her once she does that.
And I think another thing about respect too is we learn to respect life. We learn to say, everybody has a right to live and breathe and do what they want to do. So I think respect is a good thing. And the last one I have is leadership skills. So I told you when they were taking care of those goats, I didn't have to say anything. They learned to work together. One learned to take control and tell the other what to do. And sometimes that was Daniel, and sometimes that was Mary Katherine. Can you think of a time where you feel like it helped you maybe be a leader, where it helped you be in charge, and you didn't have to look to an adult, you knew what to do?
Mom,
So sometimes with the goats, Meg, Catherine, and I will say, you try to keep the little ones at their food, and then I'll keep the big one at her food. And so that's one way.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to say something, Mary Kat?
not the same thing.
About the same thing. So I already think that y'all have learned leadership skills. I saw it as I watched you, and so that makes it a little easier. Like when you're in school and it's like, okay, who's gonna take on this role, and you've done it, and so you're able to. You probably find it easier to say, okay, I'll tell you what to do, and I'll tell you what to do, and we'll kind of work together. So it helps with leadership. And the last thing I want to talk to you two about is safety with animals. In a way, I want to talk to you about how to approach animals and treat animals. And we're going to do dogs and we're going to do cats because they're kind of a little different. And I'm going to tell some stories about Mary Katherine and me. So the first one is going to have a Mary Katherine story. Do you know it? I don't know if you remember. So the first one is how to approach a dog. Walk, don't run. Why would we not want to run toward a dog?
It might feel like it might scare the dog.
Yeah. And if it's scared, what might it do?
It might try to bite.
Yeah. We don't want to scare the dog. So I'm going to tell you a story. It made me a little mad, but I knew not to be mad. So I went through this phase where I really bad wanted an English bulldog. Do you remember that phase I had where I wanted an English bulldog?
Nope.
So you were younger. You were a lot younger. And so I was up there in Durham and I didn't have my dogs with me. And so I'm always wanting to pet other dogs because I miss my dogs. And we went to Nantucket Grill to eat. And when we pulled in, there was a woman standing there with a old English bulldog on a leash. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to her about her dog. And so I started walking toward her. Well, Mary Katherine was little. So she wanted to be with me. And she wasn't really running at the dog. She was probably running at me. And I didn't see her. And so I went up to the lady and I was like, can I pet your dog? And she sort of turned this way and kind of pulled the dog, away like that. You can't touch my dog. And I realized Mary Katherine ran up next to me about that time. And so I think she was a little scared because Mary Katherine was running and probably she didn't want her dog to react badly to this child running up to her, And so I was like, oh, and I took Mary Katherine's hand and I left, but it totally makes sense. I mean, she was afraid. She didn't want the dog to hurt Mary Katherine. And we have to respect people's boundaries with their dogs. And if they say don't pet their dog, they know their dog better than anybody. And you got to say okay and be nice and walk away from it. So I think it was because Mary Katherine was running more than anything. I think she would have been nicer if we had kindly walked up, instead. And not that Mary Katherine made a mistake or anything. She was too little. She was coming to me. I made a mistake. Don't approach an overexcited dog. Why do you think that is, Daniel?
Because dogs, it would want to play with you, and dogs play and they bite when they're playing. Mm-hmm. One of my best friend's dog, he's a beagle. Mm-hmm. He's very small, but when he gets excited, he will bite your heel, and it really hurts. So if you get him overexcited, if you try to get up, he will bite your heel while you're walking, and it hurts.
Yeah, I know. Heel biters, I've heard of those. It made me think too of when Mary Katherine was really small, and she would go to see my dad, who had a standard poodle. Mm-hmm. And it scared Mary Katherine because it was really overexcited. And
he was as tall as me.
Yeah, it was huge tall. Right. So you don't want to approach an overexcited dog because they can hurt you. I mean, they can knock you down. They can bite you. You got to let it calm down before you go to it. And also it's kind of rewarding. If you go to a dog that's overexcited and pet them, they think, oh, if I act crazy, people will pet me. You need to train a dog. If I calm down, people will pet me. And that helps a lot. Remember to allow personal space. So you don't run up to a strange dog and just hug it, right? You've got to give it its space because we don't know. Different breeds of dogs handle space differently. Pugs, they don't care. Just right all up in their face. They don't care at all. But there are other dogs that are more standoffish and kind of stand back, and they don't want to be hugged and rustled and tumbled. They're more dignified. So you want to allow the personal space. Always, always, always ask before you pet a dog, right? Even if there's nobody around, you need to ask. And if there's nobody around and you can't ask, what does that mean?
Don't pet it.
Don't pet the dog, right? Yeah. So have you ever had that happen?
I don't think so.
You've always asked before you've petted a dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I think your parents do really good about teaching you respecting an animal space. I don't know that I always asked because I just love dogs and I just would run up and pet them when I was young. Um, Sometimes when I'm an adult, so I gotta be a little bit better about that. Approach slowly and make sure they're facing you. Why do you want them facing you?
So you don't surprise them and they think that you're like attacking them.
Yeah, yeah. You could. I get startled. Don't you ever have somebody come up behind you and
My
like
dad
no.
he will stand beside the stairs, and as I come down the stairs, he'll go, "Ugh!"
Yeah. And you want to smack him, right? Yeah. And so the dog's the same way. The dog kind of wants to, will maybe lash out if you're not careful if you startle them. So don't startle them. When you do, put your hand palm up. Why do you think you should put your hand palm up instead of like that?
So they can smell you and kind of lick you
What does this look like I'm going to do?
and hit them.
Yeah, I could hit them this way. This way, I'm offering something. I'm offering my hand. Some people might do this to offer a treat, right? And so it's giving them that time to sniff you, like you said, to see that you're not threatening them in any way. Come under their chin. They don't like it. This is an intimidating, and we do this a lot. They much rather they can't see up here. They don't know what you're doing. So coming up under and scratching their chin is a much better idea. Don't pet. Oh, don't pet forward. Always pat like toward the back. They don't like their faces petted and stuff like that. So once you start petting, you pet like that. Be careful about doing this too. Like some people, they might think that's hitting at an unknown dog. Like once you know the dog, then that might be the way you always love them. And then never put your face in their face. Why is that?
Eye contact is considered like a challenge to fight for a dog.
Mm-hmm. And so what would they do?
They would like attack you.
Yeah, and if they bite you in the face, it's way worse than biting you in the arm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've heard so many bad stories about children being bitten in the face, and then the dog gets put down or whatever. But did the child put her face in the dog's face and has not been taught? Don't do that. Don't put your face in a dog's face. An unknown dog. Sometimes when you have your own dog, you know what works and what doesn't. And so I can look at Vader like this and he's okay. Really, he's not. He kind of turns around and gives me his butt. So, we make up things. And the last thing I want to talk about is cats, because I have 4 baby kittens under my house, and you might come, and if you come, you're going to see a lot of cats in my house, I'm afraid. So cats are really good about body language. You have to learn a cat's body language. And what do cats do body language wise, do you think, to automatically tell you what they like and don't like?
Arching their back and hissing is
Like
that.
And that hair rising, and those little kittens are like, because they don't want me to touch them. I'm trying to tame them though, so I'm getting in their space. But watching a cat's body language when you're petting it. So this is one thing cats do. I don't know if y'all know this because y'all hadn't had cats as much. So I will be petting my cat, and my cat will be like, purr, purr, I love it, I love it. And then they'll roll over and you start rubbing their belly, and then they go, ah, and they bite your hand and scratch your thing and then jump up and run off. So knowing that body language, you got to be like, okay, he's showing me his belly, but that might really be saying, I'm about done. And so instead of petting his belly and waiting for him to scratch and bite me, it might be a way for him to say, okay, I'm ready to go. So you get learning a cat's body language is important.
Yeah, across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So he will flip over on his belly.
Yeah.
And then he will kind of go one side, and then he'll flip over to the other side. And he say, "Pick me."
Yeah, he likes it. So you've learned his body language. That's good. Yeah. You need to know the right way to pet a cat. cats have a lot of skin and stuff, and so sometimes like a toddler, like a little baby. So I know that your neighbors have a little baby. They don't know how to pet a cat. They don't pet it like this because it's so soft, and they grab it and they can like pull on its skin and stuff, or like they can pat it like that instead of petting like this. So you need to be aware to teach a young person the right way to pet a cat. So you can do that. Y'all are old enough that if you see a younger child, maybe grab the cat or pull on its tail, you can be like, this is what you do to pet a cat, okay? How to hold a cat. A lot of kids want to pick up cats, but they really are hard to pick up if you're not careful because they're real slinky. And what you need to be sure is have one hand under their chest and one hand under their back end so that you don't hurt their back when you pick them up. You don't pick them up like this, that real slinky way. You need to support them. And so I wouldn't let a little one pick them up. But like you guys, if you can pick them up, always be sure to pick them up the right way. Also, cats don't like boisterousness. So Daniel and Mary Katherine do, because y'all can be really, really boisterous. And have you ever noticed the orange cat? So like when you get the goats out, they run off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets a little boisterous out there in the yard. Cats don't like boisterousness as much, and they're much quicker to run away. So when you're around a cat, remember that. But the last two are the ones that I wanted to tell you about the most, because I'm a dog person, and I'm also a cat person. And what I mean by that is like dogs are very social and they like to be around people and they enjoy talking and being held and petted and all that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of that way too, but I'm also a cat person. So a cat person needs to be allowed to hide. So when a cat goes and hides, what's it saying?
Done.
Yeah. Don't pet me. I'm done being a people.
Leave me alone. Yeah, I want to be left alone. So cats like their alone time. Vader does not. Vader's my pug, and Vader never wants to be alone. So no matter where I go, Vader will follow me. He never likes to be alone. But my cats, sometimes they come up and sit in my lap and just let me hug them, and then they're gone. I don't even know where they are because they need their alone time. And I'm that way sometimes. What about you? Are y'all a dog person or a cat person?
Dog person.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, what would you tell your friends they should know before they get a pet, or why it's good to own a pet? What would be your final summary of that?
So the first thing that I would say is, do you have enough time to actually feed them and pay attention to them and walk them if they need to be walked? And is there a place that they can actually, does their house have a place where a dog could be happy?
Mm-hmm.
Because my neighbors, they have a big fenced-in yard and they have doggy doors. And so the dogs can go in and out whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have like a small house with a lot of breakable stuff in it, your dog might be stuck in a crate for like half the day. And then you probably would not want to get a dog because they would not be happy at all living there. And yeah.
Okay. What would you say, Mary Katherine?
Responsibility for not putting it all on your parents.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very important. I think one of the things that the parents struggle with is they want, if their children want a pet and their children say, I'll take care of it, they're so scared that their kids won't, and they'll have that responsibility on themselves. Because if the kids don't take care of it, parents, you need to take care of it because you're the adult in that situation. But if you teach your child right, I think it'd be a wonderful experience for them. And even though my niece and nephew don't have a pet in their own home, I love that they have neighbors that let them come pet their pets and help give them that responsibility and let them take care of pets and things like that, so that they learn from that. And hopefully Daniel and Mary Katherine, when they get older, if they want to, they can get a pet. And if they don't, and their kids do, they know what it's like and what they need to do to help their kids. thank you guys for being my guests today. This is our podcast for this week. Thank you, Daniel Watson and Mary Katherine Watson, who are the daughter and son of Joseph and Betsy Watson. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us today. We would like to thank our sponsor, Camden Animal Clinic and Fox Sanitation, for their support. Next week, we will talk about how we don't know what we're doing next week. Stay tuned for our next podcast. I don't know what's coming next week. And I think we're going to air this on my birthday. So why don't y'all sing happy birthday to me?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Angie. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to me. And remember, if you have a pet-related question, email us at revelation.gardens@gmail.com. And next week, same cat time, same cat channel. But guess what, guys? Dogs rule! Woo!